Welcome to Agency Elevated Podcast. This is John and Jeanette Lucero, your hosts for this podcast, where we educate and inform the masses on everything life insurance. If you've been looking for a place to get your education and become better informed about everything life insurance, you are at the right place. As well, we are building a massive team of licensed insurance agents to build the fastest growing life insurance agency in the nation. If you've been looking for a team to join, you are at the right place. Now sit back and enjoy today's episode.
Welcome back to Agency Elevated. I have no idea what number podcast we are right now, so I'm not even going to bother saying it.
I don't think we can keep track anymore.
Yeah, it's starting to get to where I only know what number episode we are on when I go to actually upload it. So with that said, we are on YouTube, and if you're on Spotify, you'll be able to see us in our studio that we are in right now recording. And we are really starting to position ourselves to pivot right now. We're starting to optimize everything that we have in place, which is really exciting because it has been a massive labor of love to get to the point that we're at right now in Agency Elevated and also in Rising of the Divine. I guess we should probably mention that to some of the people listening and watching for Agency Elevated. We do have another podcast that is just John and I, and then we are about to start having guests on there too. So Rising of the Divine. Okay. So you want to kick this one off? You know the title pretty well, so.
Yeah. So, welcome back again. What we're going to cover today, this has just been a topic that's coming up lately with a lot of our clients, a lot of our prospects. So we thought this is a good subject to get in here. And always just as a reminder, this is just a platform for us to share information, education. So today the conversation is going to be around 401ks versus Roth IRAs versus cash value life insurance. And really just kind of talking about all the advantages, disadvantages of all of them, and what might make sense for you in your own particular plans.
And my role really has been, if you're new to this podcast, if you haven't heard me talk about this before, John has been in the industry for 22 years. We sometimes say we've been in the industry for 22 years, but realistically, I've been more of the indirect involvement with it. So when we started, when we opened up Agency Elevated and started to really dive in this year, a lot of the terminology I've heard, they're like buzzwords. I've heard them, but I couldn't clearly articulate every single thing. So I'm sort of learning with you guys. And so when he started talking about this particular subject this last week with some of the clients that we've been signing on, I was blown away. And I'm like, we got to talk about this on the podcast. So my job is to help digest this in the easiest possible way for our audience members, since John is the expert. Right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we have some questions for you. First of all, we want to just plug that we do have an episode that talks about, we don't have an episode about 401ks or IRAs
No,
yet.
this will be the first one we really talk about retirement planning.
Okay. So let's kick it off with just kind of, can you gently talk about what a 401k and an IRA, what those are?
Yeah. So I think that's important because we've been talking about our specialty is really life and financial services. This is kind of the financial service side of it with the retirement planning. So a lot of people have heard about a 401k. It's probably the most common retirement plan out there. But a 401k is typically through your employer. It's a company-sponsored retirement plan where you can contribute pre-tax dollars from out of your paycheck into a retirement fund. And oftentimes your employer has some kind of match. They'll match a percentage of what you put into the fund.
Yeah.
And it's a retirement fund designed for retirement specifically.
Yeah.
So that's what a 401k is. And then with IRAs, you have two different types of IRAs. You have what's called a traditional IRA, which is also funded with tax-deferred money. So you get to take it out of your income when you put the money into it. Traditional IRA is designed that way, also for retirement, but it is not company sponsored. It's something that somebody does on their own. Mm-hmm. And then the other form would be a Roth IRA. And so this has gained a lot of attention. A lot of people are looking at the Roth IRA because what's not nice about the Roth IRA, it's another type of retirement account that you fund with after tax dollars. So you don't get to take the tax deduction, but when you take the money out, all the money that comes out is tax-free. So all the growth that you might have in the account and the money you put into it is not taxable when you take it out at retirement.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And then I guess we should probably talk. Well, let's just go right into the first question, unless there's anything you want to mention before we.
No, I think we're good to go.
Okay. All right. So let's just recap. 401k versus Roth IRA is what we're talking about versus cash value life insurance for retirement planning. And this is something that we offer inside of the agency and something that you're extremely passionate about. And something also that I want to mention, everything that we talk about and everything that we're integrated into our agency elevated business, we also do for ourselves. So I think that's important to mention, that we're our first clients almost always on most of these products.
Yeah. Now, I think one thing before we start, like when I talk about the agency elevated, it's really twofold. What our biggest issues are we try to take care of is if you leave too early, which is where life insurance comes into play, and then if you live too long, how do you have money set aside for retirement? Because most of us are living longer than we've ever had in U.S. history, world history actually. And so it's really thinking about how do we plan for the unforeseen, and then how do we plan for if we live longer than we expect and have a retirement. So that's the main things we talk about.
Yeah, if we live too long, or if we depart earlier than we would maybe hope. Okay, so what are the most common types of retirement accounts that people think of?
Yeah, so I think we kind of touched on this a little bit.
401k right away.
Yeah, 401k is probably the most common. You see it all over, everything.
Is it? I'm sorry, I don't. Is it still really relevant? Because I feel like we've had so many economic changes over the last, let's say, what are we in 10 years, or maybe since 2008, that 401ks, I don't hear about them as much. Are they still super relevant?
I would think they're probably more relevant than they've ever been.
Oh, okay, cool.
And the reason why is because why the 401k has become such a popular retirement plan is because most often pensions have gone away. You think about people that had, worked for a company 20 years, 30 years.
That's so true.
And had pensions. There's very few of those left, unless you're maybe part of a union or you're teachers, police officers, firefighters. Yeah. Very specific industries that have pensions, but not very many industries have pensions anymore.
Right.
So now these self-funded retirement plans, like what a 401k is, it's self-funded, your own money, and then sometimes with an employer match.
Okay.
So that's the best way to explain what a 401k is, just to kind of go in a little bit more detail. It's where your company provides a retirement plan for you. You're allowed to contribute into it, and the company can match you a percentage or dollar for dollar. Typically, you see anywhere between 3 to 6%, sometimes 8%. So if you put in 8% of your income, your company's going to match 8%. Mm-hmm. So that's what a 401k is, how it's designed.
But again, if you are somebody that maybe wants something to supplement that, or if you're somebody that's self-employed or doesn't have that as an option, then what are some of the other retirement types?
So then you might consider doing either a traditional IRA, and there's different types. You have the simple IRAs, SEP IRAs. Those are for self-employed people. Those are the same kind of concept, except you're funding it yourself. You can match it for example, we're a corporation. Mm-hmm. So we have a simple IRA. We as a corporation, we match ourselves as employees.
Right. To max the benefits.
Max the benefits that we can. But ultimately, we're putting all the money in. It's a corporation and our personal. So that's another option out there. It's a form of a traditional IRA for those people that don't have a company that sponsors a plan like a 401k.
Okay. What are some of the other ones?
So those are probably the most common.
Okay.
Most common. Then from there, you really have a Roth IRA. And so the Roth IRA is typically, and now you're starting to see some employers actually will do Roth IRA contributions. But again, those are after tax dollars. So for example, you make $1,000 a week. You can put $200, let's just say, into your Roth IRA. Well, your net check will be $800 because they took $200 after taxes. If it's a traditional...
After taxes, that's important. That's the Roth IRA difference between that
big
and
difference.
Simple.
And you're putting in after tax dollars. So you have to pay taxes on that money going in. Versus on a traditional IRA or a 401k, if you make $1,000 a month and you get $200 deduction, they take that before your taxes are come out. So your net check may actually be a little bit more than $800 because of the taxes.
Okay. All right. So that pretty much covers what we need to mention for the types of accounts.
Those are the most common.
Okay, cool. What is a type of retirement option that many people don't think about or know about? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. So what's become more and more prevalent, and especially, and we'll talk about this as we get more into our conversation today, is that using cash value life insurance. Specifically, I like to talk about indexed universal life products. It's a permanent life product that builds cash value. And the benefit of that is that you can contribute money into this for life insurance, but overfund the product so it builds cash value. And you can use that money for whatever you really want to use. You can use it for college education. You can use it for down payment on a house. Yeah. But a lot of people like to use it as a retirement supplement because in the way that it's structured of the life insurance vehicle through the current legislation, the way it is, the government allows you to take that money out as loans, which is tax-free. So all the growth that you experience there can be actually coming out tax-free. So it's a tax-free retirement supplement. And it's another option for people that are out there looking for ways to really beef up their retirement plans. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about it, some of the, because all of these have different contribution limits and specifics that are kind of mandated. And so I always tell people, whenever the government gives you something that you could take taxes, reduce your taxes, they're going to get you on the backside.
So I think about this as a portfolio. Just if you're somebody that's really wanting to beef up your retirement, it's more, I'm looking at it from a portfolio standpoint.
Yeah,
Having a variety of different things.
I call it diversification.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. That's a better word. Okay. Okay. Anything else you want to mention about the options that people maybe aren't thinking about?
I think those are probably the most common that are out there. I mean, there's different things. People do CDs through your banks, and there's some different opportunities out there. But specifically retirement type products, these are probably the most common.
Okay. Okay, this is a great question. What is the advantage of a 401k, of having a 401k?
So the greatest advantage is especially if you have an employer that's matching. So yeah, I just talked with a client this week. They have a company that matches 8% of their contribution. So imagine.
What would you say the average is that companies will match?
I'm seeing anywhere between 3 to 6 is on average.
Unless you're Zappos. I'm sure like Zappos freaking probably contributed like 50% because they had such a great company. But what's the average again?
It's about 3 to 6%.
Okay.
So what that means for you is, let's just say, as example, you make $100,000 a year and you want to contribute $8,000 or 8% of your income into that. Your company is going to match that 8%. So it's what I always tell people: when you think about a 401k, the greatest benefit, if you have a matching contribution, it's like getting 100% return on your money.
Right.
They're matching exactly what you put in. So
what is the benefit of a company? That's a write-off for them? What's the benefit of them contributing?
Well, a couple different things. It's an expense on the business, so they get to write that expense off. But a lot of times it's needed in today's environment for employee retention. People are looking for benefits. So if you don't offer some type of retirement plan for your employees, that's a reason a lot of people shop.
Right, and that's the reason a lot of people stay. That would be super enticing.
Yeah.
Okay, so 3 to 6% is what you said?
On average, 3 to 6%. Like I said, this week I saw somebody that actually had 8% in there.
Okay, that's really good. All right, so any other benefits to having a 401k?
Well, a lot of people look at it as the benefit is that it's a way to reduce your tax liability. So if you're a high income earner or average income earner, whatever you contribute in there is a direct tax deduction from your income.
Okay.
And so you get to write those off of your taxes. So it's a tax savings as well while you're putting money into there. The flip side of it, we'll talk about it. One of the disadvantages of that, when you take the money out, we'll talk about that in a little while.
This is so crazy to me to think about how much is around empowerment with our financial future, especially if you're somebody that you don't have a 401k and you're self-employed or you just don't have that. How much of empowering yourself is just simply in educating yourself like this? I'm just like thinking about, anybody that finds our podcast and gets a hold of this particular podcast, they're going to learn so much. But at the same time, I'm really grateful that there's somebody like you that can help digest this, because this is a lot of information, if you're shopping around. So, okay. Anything else you want to mention for the 401k advantages?
Nope, I think that's some of the greatest advantages.
All right. How do you recommend somebody to maximize their 401k?
Yeah. So typically what I will tell any of my clients is, if you find out first, what is your company match? So find out if it is that 3%.
6.
Okay. If it's 6%, then you want to maximize. Make sure you're putting in the full 6%. Right. And so you want to make sure if they're going to offer you a match, make sure you're putting in at least that much.
Right.
Because if they offer you 6% and you only put in 3%, they're only going to match you 3%. Yeah. So make sure you're putting the maximum contribution that they match.
Yeah.
That's the best way to take advantage of it. Now, I recommend to my clients, don't do anything more than the match. That's where I would tell you to start.
Oh, really? And then that's where you shop somewhere else for how you're going to invest.
To diversify, because with any of these investments, there is some risk.
Yes.
A lot of times you're investing.
Well, that's why I asked you about how relevant are 401ks, because when we had that huge crash, when was that? Was that 2012 or something?
Well, the markets have been down for a while now.
But there was a time period where a ton of people lost their 401ks.
Yeah, 2008.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah. I just remember that was like a really devastating time for a lot of older people.
Yeah, the saying that you'd hear on the news was people said their 401ks turned into a 201k because it was cut in half because of value.
Okay, but it's still relevant. It's still effective. So, okay, what were you saying though?
So what I would say is, what I recommend to what my prospects or clients we work with is take to the maximum match. But once you get to the maximum match, then you want to look for other options. How do you diversify? And so if your company matches 6, put in 6%, and then over that amount, look for other avenues where you can invest that money.
So at this point, I'm constantly thinking about, I'm that person. Okay, so I'm that person. My company matches 6%. I'm going to make sure to maximize that. I'm going to put in 6% every single month. And then now I have extra that I want to be able to start investing. Let's say it's just like even $200 a month. Now I come to you. Can you just really quickly give us a quick synopsis? What does it look like for me the client or the prospect, somebody that's shopping, to come to you, what do I do? Just fill out a, like, how do I get a hold of you? What does this look like? Can you just give a real quick synopsis?
Yeah. So, I mean, typically, you can find us lots of different ways. We have a website. You can go to agencyelevated.com, or you just, because of everything we're doing on social media, very easy to find us.
Yeah.
But really, when I go, it's always a needs analysis. And I do a needs analysis, and we've talked about that on other episodes for life insurance. It's the same thing with retirement.
Okay.
I want to find out for people, what do you currently have? I find out what they're putting into their company-sponsored plan. And like, for example, this week I had one of my clients that we worked with. He was putting in 10%, but they were only matching 8%.
Okay.
So we actually talked about reducing his percentage down to 8% and using that 2% and reinvesting it in another area.
Which is awesome that he's doing that in the first place. That's epic. Like, that's a really responsible decision. But at the same time, like, he didn't know. So I just think there's just so many little nuances that could begin to add up that people just don't know that they could just make some minor adjustments on in their investments.
Well, it's the same thing I say within life insurance, is that there's not a perfect policy in life insurance. It's more important to have a policy. It's no different with retirement planning. Starting something is better than nothing at all. No matter what, if it's your company sponsored 401k plan, if it's doing a Roth, if it's doing cash value life insurance like we're going to talk about, it's just a matter of getting started and then giving somebody the opportunity to review what you have to see if there's some modifications you can make.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I know how people get a hold of us, but I thought that was important to really mention. And all right. So what are some disadvantages? Yeah, this is important to talk about of a 401k. What are some of the disadvantages?
So some of the disadvantages with the 401k, as I started to mention, if the government gives you a tax write-off and lets you deduct the payments into it, there's going to be something on the back end that they're going to say, okay, well, we've got to make some maximums on this. So there's a maximum contribution level. So in 2023, the maximum contribution that you as an employee can make in your 401k is $22,500. So if you want to put in more than that in your 401k, you're not permitted by legislation to do that. So there's some contribution limits. So if you have, if you're a high income earner, $22,000 a year in your retirement may not be enough to get you to your retirement goals.
Especially if you start a little bit later too.
Absolutely. So that's one of the biggest disadvantages, is that you have a contribution limit, the maximum that you could put into it. The second part of it is that most people will think, and again, I'm one of these people that think taxes are probably not going to go down over time. We see what the debt of our economy is today. Taxes will probably rise. And so although you're getting a tax write-off right now, when you take out this money out of the 401k in retirement, it is completely taxable. And chances are you're going to have less write-offs.
Yeah.
You probably have less, expenses to write off. You maybe no longer have businesses, all of the expenses that you can write off today on your taxes. So you have less write-offs and you're in a higher tax bracket.
Right.
And so your taxable retirement funds can be impacted pretty drastically. Right. And so that's a big disadvantage of it. And that's why it's important to diversify so that you don't have every single thing in what we call a taxable bucket. You don't want all of your retirement to be taxable. And with the 401k, everything is taxable. Because
of that rise of the...
Because of the potential rise of taxes. Taxes historically have never gone down. If they did, they go down for a very short time. Historically, taxes will continue to rise. And so when you're in your retirement age, you maybe no longer have mortgage write-off because you've already paid your home off. You don't have any of the additional deductions. So you're in the highest tax bracket, and all of your retirement from a 401k is taxable.
Yeah. Okay. So again, it's important to diversify. All right. So what are some advantages of Roth IRAs? Yeah.
So when you think about the Roth IRA, what's really nice about the Roth IRA is that if you're not looking for a present tax deduction today, you're putting in after-tax dollars, so money you've already paid taxes on, but all the money that goes in there, plus any growth that you experience in the account over time, is completely tax-free upon distribution. So now you have a bucket in your retirement that is untaxable or non-taxable. So a lot of people like the benefit of that with the Roth is that you have a tax-free bucket of money coming out at retirement that you don't have to worry about paying taxes no matter what the tax brackets look like.
What's the max?
So again, there's the disadvantage. So currently with a contribution to a Roth IRA in 2023, the maximum you can contribute is $6,500 a year.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I find that so mind-blowing.
Well, that's one disadvantage. The other disadvantage is that for high income earners, and again, I don't have the exact numbers here with me today, but if you're a high income earner, it's probably about $130,000 combined income for a married couple. You're not eligible to even contribute to a Roth IRA. So someone like ourselves, because we have a business, we're not even eligible to contribute into a Roth IRA. So it's not even an option for us. So that's another disadvantage.
But our kids, it was an option.
Yeah. So, but you have to have earned income, but you can only have a certain level of earned income to contribute to a Roth.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to get into it too much right now, but I'm sure some of these things are put in place for a good reason. Like maybe they're a pain in the butt and like we may not agree with them and we question them, but I'm sure some of them are put in place for protection for us too, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the greatest way I can explain it is when you think about a 401k, the 401k is actually where the number came from. It's a tax code within our taxes system in the U.S. government. So, same as the Roth. The Roth is because of a tax code. And so it was designed. And so if the government's going to give us some benefit, they have to protect themselves on the backside of it. So if they give you a tax deduction, they can't give unlimited contributions.
Which is what I'm alluding to is that is actually protecting us. They want to sort of like your employer, offering the 401k in the first place to help with the retention of their employees. This is to help with the retention of this system. Is having some of these rules and regulations in place. So it is ultimately to help protect us as well.
Yeah, I believe so.
And we've talked about it a little bit in past podcasts. I remember that we mentioned like there's risks either way. There's risks on the insurance side and there's risks on the client side. So we're all taking a little bit of a risk. I just think, not to put us ever in a position of victimism in these types of situations that when we're talking about this.
Well, and one other thing to talk about with both the 401k and the Roth that could be a disadvantage. It's an advantage and a disadvantage, but most often you're investing in the stock market.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you're doing this
fickle.
In mutual funds. And so if the markets are down, which they are today, they're down. I've seen people that I look at their 401k statements, they're actually down in money right now.
Yeah.
And so there's potential loss of principal or your principal balance that you've invested. Now, the advantage is when the markets are great, we've had years where we've seen 20+% returns.
Yes.
So that's the risk balance that you have to go through. But a lot of people...
And it really depends on what point of your life are you going to be withdrawing from that. Any of these funds, these retirement funds.
Well, and that's good that you talked on that because I talk about with our clients about rate of return. Everybody will say, well, my average rate of return has been 10% with these funds. And that's great to know that.
What time frame are we looking at? Yeah.
And you want to be concerned when you get closer to retirement, rate of return doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
You want to have protection of your principal as much as possible. Because I use an example. Let's just say, for example, you get into retirement and you're ready to retire and you have $1 million in your retirement account. If your first year, if the market goes down 20%, your balance went from $1 million to $800,000. And a lot of people say, well, that's okay. The next year, if we have a bounce back and it goes up 20%, I get my money back. Well, in reality, just simple math, you actually have to grow 25% to get back to where you were at before. And so when you're in retirement, you want to have some kind of safeguards of saying, I can know what I can plan on for my retirement income. And so if markets fluctuate, it's very hard to balance that. And so that can sometimes be a disadvantage with any type of products that's tied into the stock market directly, where there's no protection for downside returns.
And I think about this, again, I'm trying to always position myself mentally in our conversations as I'm the one that's going to be making these moves or contributing to my IRA or my 401k. I think about this kind of makes my head spin a little bit because there's so many things to look at and there's so many, I want to say measures and metrics and things like that go into this. So my head is kind of spinning a little bit, which I can imagine most people coming into this, they might feel like they have no idea what to do or where to even get this started. But at the same time, get over that hurdle of just getting the conversation started, have somebody do you a needs analysis with you. Once you get over that first hurdle of it, where it starts really making a little bit more sense and things are explained to you, I keep talking about empowerment, but the education alone is empowering, but let alone the peace of mind. Like I'm thinking about a couple of the clients that we worked with this week. I say you more directly work with them. I do a lot of the back end stuff. And their families, the two I'm thinking of, their families, and the peace of mind that they're going to walk away with. But they had to make the decision to go into the conversation, take the time for the conversation, take the time for the needs analysis, fill out the information. And some of these things that they do take a little bit of time. And it's a commitment on your part to just say yes. But like I said, the empowerment of just the education, even if somebody went through the whole process with you and never even changed anything in their finances, they will feel more empowered. So to me, it's like two of the greatest things that you're giving yourself is empowerment. And then in the end, peace of mind to know that some of these things are put in place to help protect your future. Because otherwise, John, how are people supposed to know about this stuff? Like, seriously, and this is not to get on a bitchy bandwagon about some of these things that we all can agree with, but we don't have the proper educational system put in place, even with just in high school and college, to teach us about this unless we go into it as more of a mastery. So how are people going to know about this? And so again, just that one step of going and contacting somebody. Again, you can find us on the website. You can fill out a form there. You can call us. We're all over social media, Agency Elevated, and just getting the ball rolling. Yeah. That's it.
Well, like I'll just use my clients from this week. Simply what they said is we don't know what we don't know. And they were just open to say that. And I said, that's okay. Most people I talk to, haven't had these conversations. Being open to say, I just don't know what I don't know about my financial situation. And then it can be an education. And that's the part of what I love about this career is that education piece. And there's already people I've met with that have said, you know what, you're good where you're at. Yep. These are maybe some modifications I make, but there's not a product I need to give you or sell you to make your situation any better.
And those moments for us are actually really gratifying and satisfying of when you meet with somebody and you're like, okay, somebody's taken care of, like somebody's handled it already, you know? So that also for us is gratifying. So, all right. So you talked about some of the disadvantages of a Roth IRA. Is there anything else you want to mention?
No, I think I covered most everything on that.
What are some advantages to cash value life insurance? This is the one that really, I don't know what it is about cash value life insurance that has me so stimulated. I don't know if it's like something that we need to dive into way further in our portfolio or what, but talk about that.
So a lot of great advantages, I think, with cash value life insurance. Specifically, one of the products I really like the most is called an indexed universal life policy. And so the advantages, number one is you can contribute in this. There is no contribution limits. So you can put as much money into this.
Well, I knew that. I'm acting like I didn't know that, but I'm like, for the audience, let's highlight that. There's no contribution limits.
Yeah, unlimited amount of money that you could put in here. And so that's one of the primary benefits, that you can put in an unlimited amount of money into the product. That's a great benefit. The other thing is that you can actually withdraw your money out of there, any of the growth that you've experienced in the account, tax-free. There's ways to do it with withdrawals and loans, the way that it's structured, that you don't have to pay any taxes on any of the money coming out of it, as long as the life insurance policy stays in force. As long as there's at least $1 of life insurance benefit there, you'll never have to pay taxes. That's the way it's set up with current legislation, and that's structured that way. But the advantages of this is that not only do you get the benefit of no contribution limits, there's also downside protection. So if the markets go down below 0%.
What is, 0%?
So let's say a lot of times they're based on an index fund. That's why it comes from S&P 500. A lot of people have heard that. If the S&P 500 is down 10% this year, your account will never go below zero. So even though it's at minus 10%, you're only going to go down to zero. You'll never lose your principal balance. So you're protected that way.
Yeah.
The flip side of it, and some people may say is a disadvantage, you don't have the big upswings like you might see in a mutual fund product, where if you get a 20% return, that they do cap your levels of return.
Which wouldn't matter for somebody that's really in this long term.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would matter a lot less for somebody.
But again, the benefit is that you could put an unlimited amount of money in here and know that anything that you pull out at time of retirement is tax-free. And again, it's not specifically a retirement account. If you need to pull funds out because you had a loss of job.
Or home loan or
education.
Down payment,
all these different things, you can still pull money out. It's all tax-free withdrawals from there. You could pay back those loans and keep building the balance, or you could choose not to pay the loan and it'll just decrease your balance over time.
I like this one just because I feel like this resembles a savings account more at the same time as a retirement account. It kind of like has a mesh of the two to me in my mind. So, okay.
Well, the other big benefit is because it is a life insurance policy. So in the event that I'm funding this for myself for supplementing my retirement, if I die soon or I die earlier than expected, there's a death benefit that gets paid to my beneficiaries. So in this example, it'd be to you and to our children. So they get the beneficiary, and that comes to them tax-free.
Yeah.
Death benefits come tax-free. If you have a 401k or you have a Roth IRA, yes, you can still have a beneficiary, but that's taxable to the beneficiary.
Right. So they get the remainder. All right, so this is cash value life insurance. And again, they would have to have a needs analysis, and then you go through what type of policy is going to work for them, make all these adjustments for them. Okay. I want to know this very specifically. What are the disadvantages of a cash value
Yeah,
life
so
insurance
because
policy?
it is life insurance and it's not specifically a retirement plan, you have to qualify. So your health will matter. If you're extremely unhealthy or you're not
Is
insurable,
it harder to be approved for this type of life insurance policy?
um,
Is it one of the harder ones?
it's not necessarily harder because life insurance has the same underwriting guidelines regardless if
Okay.
it's term or if it's
No matter
permanent
what.
insurance.
Okay.
But you have to be healthy. You have to be insurable. So if you have extreme health risks and you're not insurable, you may not
Give me
qualify.
some examples of extreme health risks that just would not qualify.
So, typically if you currently have cancer, that would
Oh,
be
yeah.
one. That'd be one of the. If you have been diagnosed as terminally ill, if you have early stage Parkinson's, maybe could be a situation. Diabetes at an extreme level, very hard to insure. So if the risks that you have, if maybe your body mass index is out of whack and you really have a high body mass index, hard to get insured. So there's different things that could cause this to not be an advantage for you because you can't qualify.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of what the challenge is. The other part of it is that if you're older, it can be more expensive. So the cost of a life insurance can be more, which means less of that money goes into the building of the cash value and the supplement.
Okay, so if you're older, it could be more expensive. But again, I mean, some of these situations, if somebody wants it bad enough, then there's probably things that they can do to really make it happen. So, all right. Last question. What recommendations do you give clients when considering all of these options?
So I think we talked about this a little bit already. It's diversification. There is no perfect plan. I would never tell any of my clients have all of your money in cash value life insurance, have all of it in 401k, have all of it in Roth. It's about diversification.
Mm-hmm.
There is benefit to having some tax advantages, to be able to reduce your taxes by doing a 401k today. But I tell people, let's look at your holistic plan for your retirement and have an idea so that you don't have everything taxable in retirement, because we anticipate taxes will go up.
Mm-hmm.
And so having some things that have some protection from taxes, protection from the market. That's what's nice about cash value life insurance. If the markets go down, you can protect your principal. And so I always tell people, look at diversification and have more than one bucket of your retirement accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one thing I would tell everybody is to start now. Don't wait until you're closer to retirement. And unfortunately, I've talked to many clients this week that are in, and I've talked to them and said they're 4 or 5 years away from retirement, and they've got $100,000 set aside. And they're asking me, how long will this take me? And so we're building plans to do that, but it's not a substantial amount of money to get them to the retirement that they plan
It's
for.
doable, and you can help them, but like you're saying, and I mean, even 18 years old. I mean, well, that's how old you have to be to qualify, but at 18 years old, why wouldn't somebody even start there? Which is something we're kind of working on, a little plan with this, is to help the younger really get started on this.
Yeah, I mean, that's the greatest age to start is when you first start earning income.
Yeah.
That's the best place to start. And because what that can look like in growth is just exponential for what
Oh my
people
gosh.
get to.
I mean, every one of us have heard of stories about, if I would have done this, this would have been that way, or if whatever. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to mention? Let me just read this title again and see if anything comes up in your mind. 401ks versus Roth IRAs. Cash value insurance for retirement versus cash value life insurance for retirement.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I would tell people is really an education piece. If you heard something in here today that you said, okay, hey, I've got a 401k, and maybe the first thing I thought, I don't even know what my match is.
Yeah.
Go figure out what your company matches you. And then
start there. So you're saying start there if you have a 401k.
If you have
Start
a 401k,
there.
yeah.
Just check what the match is.
Find out what your company matches. Number one, find out what you're contributing. If you're contributing more than the match, then I would recommend only do to the max and look for some other alternatives. That's something you can reach out to us for. Mm-hmm. But that's the first place to start. Find out if you can actually qualify to participate in a Roth IRA. Is your income level qualify you? Are you able to participate?
Again, that would be through you.
Yep.
Okay.
You can find that out through us. We can get you the exact numbers.
Yep.
They change every single year. And then if you've never even considered cash value life insurance, have a conversation.
Yeah.
Talk about what that potentially look like. Any professional insurance agent, us included, can give you an illustration that will show you potentially what that looks like for you based on what you put together.
Yeah, and I think that's an important piece to the steps of just getting started, is just having an idea on what you want your financial future to look like when it comes to retirement. That's something that I don't think a lot of people have really thought about. And also I've noticed that especially around my parents' generation and even some into our generation, a lot of people just kind of turn the blind eye and don't want to think about retirement. It's too overwhelming for them, or they just hope things will be okay when that time comes. And maybe it will be. And, not to put fear into somebody, but definitely if you have an opportunity to look at this ahead of time on what you might want your financial future to look like when it comes to retirement, there are things that you can begin to do right now, even on the smallest of scale. Like I think about our kids, we're getting them started very early. Well, I shouldn't say we are, but we're helping them get started. They're the ones that are actually getting started very early. And we're trying to get them set up to where they'll be at retirement just set.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to start now.
Yeah.
And their contributions, and not to put numbers or anything, that's their information. Their contributions aren't major they're not like these massive amounts of money that they're putting into their portfolios. So.
Yeah. The only other thing I would add to that is we talked about those people that are looking at either that are participating now and starting.
Yeah.
But if you're one of the person that may be listening today, and again, I don't know our audience, but I'm sure there's somebody out there that's saying, well, maybe it's too late for me, or I'm too close to retirement.
Yeah.
What are some options for me so I can protect myself from market losses? That's another area we can help you. And I'm helping a lot of clients right now that are getting close to retirement say, okay, now I'm going to retirement. I can't afford to have any market downturns. How can I protect my balances?
There's solutions.
And there's solutions to do that. So you can, not only we call it secured guaranteed retirement accounts, where you can actually secure your principal and guarantee yourself a lifetime income. And so we can help you with those type of things if you're already in that stage of your retirement process.
Well, and this is it's a little bit different than what we're talking about, but I do want to say that when somebody, let's say somebody like who you're talking about is energetically feeling like they can't make this happen, or they can't afford it, or it's too late, or whatever, that, just getting into that position of finding solutions and then possibly having something put in place, I can imagine that's going to free them up energetically. Like, in other words, make them feel happier or more peaceful or whatever in their lives. So, yeah.
Well, I just think overall, most people feel better when they have a plan.
That's what I'm saying. But I always think of it like what it could do for their overall life.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like what it could do for their overall life, that they're not even realizing how much this might be affecting them every day on a low level, because a lot of this stuff sits really deeply subconscious for us.
Yeah. Well, and you hit it perfectly. I wish that you could be on some of the calls that I go through and I'm with people, because you do energetically see the shift when people are making these informed decisions.
Yes.
It's like they're getting a sense of power that they didn't know they needed. And
that's nourishment to our soul. Honestly, to us, that's nourishment for us. Mm-hmm. So, I bet their faces completely change on camera too. That would be really, really cool to see that.
Yeah. In person and on camera, you could just notice it.
Oh yeah, I guess you're in person too a lot. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers it. I don't know what our next podcast is going to be about, but this is really sparking a lot of questions for me, because I just would love to dive in a little bit deeper on some of these, just talking more about what is a Roth IRA, what is a 401k, and just diving in a little bit deeper on some of these. So maybe we'll go there next. Yeah. I'm not sure. Anything on your mind to go there?
No,
next?
I mean, what's really great about doing this podcast is it's really real life experience.
Yeah.
This is what comes up for me in conversations with prospects and clients every single week that leads into these conversations. But I also say for people that are watching this or seeing us on social media, we want to hear feedback. Yeah. So if there's something that sparked in this conversation, you say, man, I have this question, reach out to us, because it'll lead to another podcast, or we can have a conversation about it.
Yeah. I like that, because if you are somebody watching this and you do feel like you have a question, even just sending a message on Instagram or on Facebook Messenger, you don't have to contact us to be able to, you don't have to go all the way in other words, into like a needs analysis or a phone call or anything like that. Just message us, because it is true. Today's podcast was stimulated by you and I having a conversation that was stimulated by one of our clients. Mm-hmm. So, you never know what you could help to bring in information and education onto the podcast just by asking a question. So, yeah. All right. Until next time, anything else, John?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. It's almost the week, and I almost just said have a good weekend. Well, I guess
when it comes out, it may not be close to the weekend, but for us recording today, it is almost the weekend.
Yeah, it's almost the weekend. So anyways, thank you guys for being here on Agency Elevated. We'll see you on the next podcast. Bye, guys.